Welcome to today's deep dive. So, if you are listening to this right now, I really want you to picture a scenario.
Oh, a stressful one, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. You're sitting in like a high-stakes boardroom, or maybe you're defending a complex academic thesis, or perhaps you're just, trying to hold your ground in a really tense negotiation with a contractor.
Right, we've all been there.
We really have. And you have these brilliant ideas in your head, but when you open your mouth, the words that come out feel just a little too blunt, a little too basic.
And suddenly you can just sense that the people across the table, they aren't taking you quite as seriously as they should.
Exactly. It's so frustrating.
It is a universally frustrating experience. And, it usually stems from a very fundamental misunderstanding of what advanced communication actually looks like in practice.
Right, because usually when we talk about learning a language or, improving our professional communication, there's this expectation of simply acquiring more and more words.
Like filling up a bucket.
Yeah, exactly, like a bucket. You start with good and bad, and eventually you just memorize bigger, harder, more obscure words to impress people. You try to sound like a walking thesaurus.
Which is precisely the wrong approach. It's often viewed as a purely quantitative exercise, like more syllables equal better English.
Right. Which isn't true at all.
No, not at all. If you deploy incredibly complex, obscure words in a modern professional setting, you don't actually sound intelligent. You sound out of touch, pompous, and frankly, kind of insecure.
And that brings us to our mission today. We are stepping into a masterclass on C1 and C2 English vocabulary, but we're looking at it through a very specific lens.
Yeah, we've compiled a great stack of sources for this deep dive.
We really have. We're pulling from Harvard Business Review case studies on corporate diplomacy, applied linguistics research on pragmatic competence, and even some semantic analyses of high-stakes negotiations.
And the core philosophy across all of these sources is this. Sounding intelligent is absolutely not about using difficult words just to sound impressive.
Right. Good advanced English is clear, it's accurate, and it's deeply natural.
I like to say it is about precision, not complexity.
But okay, let's unpack this philosophy before we get into the actual vocabulary. Because I have to push back a little here.
Sure, go ahead.
If the ultimate goal of language is just to be understood by the person sitting across from you, why not stick to the simplest words possible?
That's a fair question.
Like if I want to say an idea is bad, why not just say that's a bad idea? Aren't these so-called advanced words just a way to, show off your education?
Well, that is a very common and very understandable critique. But what's fascinating here is the distinction between language that is complicated and language that is precise.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let me give you an analogy. Think of simple words as a blunt instrument, like a hammer.
Okay, a hammer. Got it.
A hammer gets the job done, absolutely.
Right.
But it leaves a lot of collateral damage. If you sit in a meeting and say, this is a bad idea, you've essentially swung the hammer.
Right, you just smashed the table.
Exactly. But what does bad actually mean in that context? I mean, does it mean the idea is too expensive? Does it mean it's unethical? Or maybe the timeline is impossible?
Or that the underlying data is just flawed.
Right. Bad is a blunt impact that forces the listener to guess your true meaning. And honestly, it usually just makes the person who came up with the idea super defensive.
Yeah, I'd be defensive too.
Advanced vocabulary, on the other hand, acts like a scalpel.
A scalpel? Oh, I like that. It's surgical.
It is surgical. You don't use a scalpel to chop down a tree, and you don't use C2 vocabulary in every single sentence of a casual chat about the weather.
That would just be weird.
Very weird. You deploy the scalpel when a specific thought requires exactness, when you need to dissect an idea, isolate a specific risk, or, identify a subtle opportunity.
And you do all that without damaging the professional relationships around it.
Exactly. Advanced vocabulary is about semantic weight. It's the art of corporate diplomacy.
So it's really about having the exact right tool for a very specific job, so you don't accidentally burn down the boardroom.
Precisely.
Which brings us to our roadmap for today. We are going to explore 30 specific words that function as these linguistic scalpels.
30 words. It's a solid list.
It is. We're going to weave through 6 interconnected phases of communication. We'll start with how you form thoughts in your own mind, move into how you argue those opinions, discuss how you execute problem solving.
And then track the causes and effects of those decisions.
Right. Then we refine the clarity of your communication, and finally, evaluate the results.
It is a complete life cycle of an idea, really, from inception to postmortem.
And we will be looking at the meanings, the etymology of why these words hold so much psychological weight, the professional registers, and, how to deploy them naturally with some little role plays.
The role plays are going to be fun.
Oh, they are. And listener, make sure you stick around to the very end because we aren't just going to list these words. I have actually written a truly disastrous, highly emotional, terribly worded professional email.
It is a spectacularly bad email.
It really is. And the expert and I are going to do a practical line-by-line upgrade challenge to show you how these words instantly shift the power dynamic of a conversation.
All right, let's begin the surgery.
Phase 1. Thinking and reasoning. Because, before we can communicate effectively with anyone else, we have to refine how we form our thoughts internally.
That's right. If your internal logic is a mess, the most articulate vocabulary in the world won't save you.
This is the vocabulary of the mind. And the very first tool we need to pick up is the word nuanced.
Nuanced. So the meaning here is showing small but incredibly important differences. It's the opposite of black and white thinking.
Right. It is acknowledging the intricate shades of gray.
Exactly. And the register for this is firmly professional and academic.
See, I hear people misuse this a lot. They use nuanced as just a fancy synonym for complicated. But they really are the same thing, are they?
Not at all. If we connect this to cognitive psychology, complicated implies a tangled mess, like a knot of wires behind your television is complicated.
Yeah, that's just a headache.
But a beautiful high-definition photograph, that is nuanced. The word implies a highly organized spectrum of detail.
Oh, wow. I love that comparison.
So when you tell a colleague that an issue is nuanced, you are signaling something very specific. You're telling them that you refuse to fall into a lazy, binary fight-or-flight mode of thinking.
You're signaling that you're willing to do the hard cognitive work. Let's do a quick role play. Let's say we're in a meeting discussing a new remote work policy.
Okay, I'll be the aggressive colleague. So I say, remote work is destroying our productivity. We need to cancel it right now.
And if I just disagree and say, no, it's great, we've created a binary war. But if I step in and say, well, I think the reality of remote work is far more nuanced. Our deep focus tasks have improved, but our collaborative brainstorming has suffered.
Precisely. You see how that diffuses the situation? The word nuanced acts as a pressure release valve in a heated room.
It really does. It kind of flatters the listener, actually.
It does. It says, hey, you and I are smart enough to look at the fine details here. It elevates the entire room's thinking.
Which is the perfect bridge to our next word, which is essentially the enemy of nuance, assumption.
An assumption.
Yeah.
That is a premise that you believe is true without having actual proof or evidence.
And the register here is neutral to professional. It's just an absolute workhorse word in business and academia.
It really is. We all know what an assumption is, but we need to focus on how we use the word as a strategic shield.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I was in a negotiation once where a contractor said, since you guys have an unlimited marketing budget, we're going to double our ad spend.
Oh, wow. What did you say?
Well, I could have said, you are wrong. Are you crazy? But instead, I just said, that strategy is built on a rather risky assumption about our budget. Let's try that as a mini dialogue. You be the contractor.
Okay, hey, we're going to double the ad spend since you have an unlimited budget?
And I reply, well, that's an interesting idea, but it's based on a risky assumption about our resources.
What stands out to you in that interaction? Why did that work so much better than just saying no?
Because it didn't feel like a personal attack. I didn't attack his intelligence. I attacked the invisible foundation his idea was standing on.
Exactly. This traces back to Socratic questioning. Calling out an assumption is the ultimate intellectual power move.
It really is. It's like a phantom variable.
Yes, a phantom variable. When you use this word, you force the group to pause and actually look at the unproven, invisible foundations of their strategy.
Right. You aren't saying the idea is inherently terrible. You're merely pointing out that the bridge is being built on sand instead of bedrock.
You're forcing them to prove the math.
Speaking of proving the math, the third word in our internal mental toolkit is rationale.
Rationale. The meaning here is the underlying reason, or the structural logic, behind a specific decision or course of action.
And this is a formal and professional register. Now, here is where I always get tripped up, and I know you listening probably do too. Why not just use the word reason?
It's a common question.
Like, why do I need to say rationale? Am I not just trying to sound smarter? If my boss cancels a project, why shouldn't I just ask, what was the reason?
This is a brilliant distinction, honestly. If we look at the pragmatic application of these words, they trigger entirely different psychological responses.
Okay, how so?
Think about what happens when you ask someone, what is your reason for doing this? Or worse, Why did you do this?
Oh, they get immediately defensive. They felt like they were being interrogated.
Yes, because a reason can be highly subjective or emotional. Like, I chose this vendor because I had a good feeling about them. That's a reason.
Right, it's very personal.
But the word rationale comes from the Latin rationalis, relating to reason and computation. When you asked for the rationale, you were demanding an objective framework.
Okay.
You were basically saying, I am not questioning your personal motives. I'm simply asking to see the architectural blueprints of your decision-making process. Let's do the dialogue.
Okay, you're the boss. Why are we changing the schedule?
And I reply, the rationale is to reduce delays during peak hours. Oh, wow. It's so emotionally detached. So if a CEO is announcing layoffs and says, the reason we are doing this is to save money, it sounds almost petty.
Yes, very reactive.
But if the CEO says the rationale behind this restructuring is to ensure long-term sustainability, they are claiming to have a structural blueprint.
Precisely. It shifts the conversation from emotion to structure.
Okay, so we've established our nuanced rationale and checked our assumptions. Now we need to look into the future. Word number 4 is implication.
An implication is a possible future result, a secondary consequence, or a hidden meaning that isn't explicitly stated.
And the register is highly professional and academic. For a long time, I just thought of implications as ripples in a pond. You throw the rock, that's the decision. The ripples are the implications.
That's a decent start for sure, but let's push that metaphor further. The word comes from the Latin implicare, which means to entangle or weave together.
Entangle, I like that.
Yeah, implications aren't just passive ripples. They are the hidden machinery of cause and effect. Right. It's like the concept of second-order thinking in economics.
Explain that for the listener.
So first-order thinking says, let's lower the price of our product so we sell more. That's the immediate result. But the implication of lowering the price might be that your brand is now perceived as cheap, so luxury buyers abandon you entirely.
Which is exactly why implication is the vocabulary of the chess player. Let's role play it. You propose a price hike.
Okay. If prices rise, our margins will look great this quarter.
And I say true, but have we considered the implication that customers may leave for our cheaper competitors?
Boom. You instantly position yourself as the most strategic thinker in the room. You're looking 3 moves ahead while everyone else is looking at the board right in front of them.
You are seeing the invisible strings. And, to see those strings, you need our 5th word, which closes out this category. Perspective.
Perspective, meaning a particular point of view or a specific way of seeing and understanding something.
This is a highly versatile, neutral to professional register.
Let's talk about perspective as a tool for empathy and de-escalation. Because it sounds like a simple word, but its power in an argument is massive.
It is massive because it acknowledges the psychological concept of theory of mind. The realization that other people hold completely different yet internally valid sets of information.
Oh, that's deep.
Think about the etymology here, perspicere, to look through, like looking through a lens.
So let's do a role play. I'm a colleague from the legal department, and I'm blocking your marketing campaign. I say, I disagree with this decision. It's too risky.
And instead of saying you just don't get it, I say, I understand your perspective, but I see it differently from a marketing standpoint.
That is corporate diplomacy at its finest. You're validating their reality while maintaining your own.
Yes. You're admitting that you're both standing in different parts of the same room, looking at the exact same object, but seeing entirely different shadows.
Okay, so that is phase 1. We have formed our internal thoughts. We have a nuanced rationale. We've identified the assumptions, weighed the implications, and adopted a multi-lens perspective.
But having a brilliant mind in silence doesn't get you promoted.
No, it definitely doesn't. You have to bring those thoughts out into the world. That brings us to phase 2, arguments and opinions. How do we present our thoughts to others and evaluate theirs?
We enter the arena of debate. And our first tool here, word number 6 overall, is compelling.
Compelling, meaning very convincing, evoking interest, or capturing attention in a way that feels almost irresistible.
And the register here is professional and academic. What's really fascinating about compelling is that it implies a physical force.
Yes. It doesn't just mean a presentation was good. If you say her argument was compelling, it implies gravity. It pulls you in.
Exactly. Let's role play. You asked me about a pitch we just heard.
Hey, did that presentation convince you?
Yes. The evidence was incredibly compelling. I had no choice but to agree.
See, in the legal world, lawyers don't just want good evidence. They need compelling evidence. Evidence that forces a jury to agree because the gravity of the truth is simply too strong to walk away from.
It leaves the listener with no intellectual choice but to be persuaded. You are compelled by gravity, and you are compelled by undeniable logic.
But of course, not all arguments possess that gravity. Some are the exact opposite, which leads to word 7, flawed.
Flawed, meaning having fundamental mistakes, imperfections, or weaknesses, neutral to professional.
Now, if an idea is just wrong, why shouldn't I just say, your idea is wrong?
Well, because wrong is a dead end. If I say your idea is wrong, the conversation is over. We're at an impasse. But if I say your idea is flawed, I am acting like a structural engineer inspecting a building.
Exactly. You are pointing out a crack in the foundation. The building might look beautiful, the paint might be fresh, but structurally, it cannot hold weight.
Let's do the dialogue. You pitch me a plan.
Okay, here's my strategy. It looks pretty solid, right?
I reply, the creative vision is interesting, but the underlying logic is flawed.
See, if a boss says, this is wrong, the employee's confidence is totally crushed. But saying it's flawed, that's an objective diagnosis. A flaw can be fixed. A wrong cannot.
You are attacking the blueprint, not the architect. And if a blueprint has no flaws, we arrive at our 8th word, coherent.
Coherent.
Yeah.
Meaning clear, logical, and structurally well organized, where all the parts connect harmoniously. Professional and academic register.
A lot of people think coherent just means understandable, but it is much deeper than that. Look at the Latin root, cohere, which means to stick together.
To stick together. So it's not just a puzzle where the pieces look nice. It's more like a watertight legal contract.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, let's do the dialogue. I asked you about a proposal. Did you understand her proposal?
And I say, yes, it was very coherent and easy to follow.
So if I read a proposal and call it coherent, I'm saying that paragraph A naturally leads to paragraph B, which mathematically supports paragraph C. There are no gaps. There are no contradictions.
It is a solid, impenetrable object. Coherence is the absolute baseline requirement for any professional debate. If an argument isn't coherent, it is just a collection of random noises.
Right. We can't even evaluate it.
But here is where the reality of the boardroom sets in. You can have an argument that is perfectly coherent, highly compelling, and utterly devoid of flaws, and people will still passionately fight over it.
Oh, they definitely will. Which brings us to word number 9, contentious.
This is a heavy one. Contentious, meaning likely to cause a fierce disagreement or debate. This is a formal register.
It's a vital word for navigating office politics. Let's do the dialogue first.
Okay. You asked me about bringing up a sensitive topic.
Should we discuss salary transparency at the all-hands meeting?
And I say, carefully, it can be a highly contentious issue.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. I've heard people use this interchangeably with angry. If people are shouting in a meeting room, is that a contentious meeting? How does contentious differ from just saying everyone is mad?
This raises an incredibly important question about the nature of the words we choose. And it goes right back to the idea of the semantic shield. Contentious describes the nature of the topic itself, not the emotion of the human beings discussing it.
Ah, I see. It externalizes the conflict.
Exactly. Taxes, corporate mergers, salary transparency, layoff protocols. These are inherently contentious issues. They naturally invite opposing, deeply held views because the stakes are high.
Right.
But you can actually have a perfectly calm, quiet, polite discussion about a highly contentious topic.
So if I'm leading a meeting and I say, all right, team, the next item on the agenda is budget cuts. And I know this is going to make everyone angry. I've just primed the room to be emotional.
Yes, you've basically given them permission to throw a tantrum.
But if I say the next item is budget cuts, which I acknowledge is a highly contentious issue, I am putting up a professional warning sign.
You are saying, proceed with caution, minefield ahead. It maintains professional distance. It's the topic's fault that it is difficult, not ours.
Wow, that is powerful. And successfully navigating a contentious topic is the only way to reach word number 10. Consensus.
Consensus, meaning a general agreement among a group of people. This is a purely professional register word.
Let's do our quick dialogue. I asked, does everyone agree on the new software?
And I reply, not yet. We still need to reach a consensus.
Now, I hear consensus used constantly as a synonym for compromise. Are they the same thing?
They are absolutely not the same, and it is a pet peeve of mine when people confuse them. What's your take on compromise?
A compromise is essentially a shared loss. Like, if I want pizza and you want sushi, and we compromise by getting mediocre sandwiches that neither of us likes, That's a compromise. We both gave up what we wanted so we could survive the negotiation.
Everyone is equally unhappy, a bleak but accurate assessment of compromise. So what is consensus?
Consensus is a broader collective alignment. It's the feeling of the room deciding to move forward together. Let's say a board of directors is choosing a new CEO. There are 10 people on the board. Maybe 3 of them thought candidate A was absolutely perfect, and the other 7 thought candidate A was just pretty good.
Right, they aren't all of them wildly enthusiastic.
No, they don't all love it equally. But they have reached a consensus that candidate A is the right choice for the company.
There's a famous Japanese business concept called nemawashi, which literally translates to going around the roots. It's the meticulous process of quietly laying the foundation for a proposed change.
Oh, like talking to everyone before the meeting.
Exactly. Talking to everyone individually, gathering feedback, and adjusting the plan before the formal meeting ever happens. The goal of nemawashi is to ensure that when the meeting starts, consensus is already a foregone conclusion.
So consensus doesn't mean unanimity where everyone thinks the idea is flawless. It means the group, as an organism, has committed to the path.
Precisely. Okay, so we've debated the contentious topics, maintained our coherence, and finally reached a consensus. That means it is time to actually do the work. The talking is over.
This brings us to phase 3, problem solving and decisions. How do we talk about building and executing our ideas in the harsh light of reality? Word 11, feasible.
Feasible means possible to do easily or conveniently. Practically viable. The register is strictly professional.
Let's role play. I say, hey, can we finish this entire project by Friday?
And I reply, well, it's possible, but I'm not sure it's feasible.
Okay, I'm going to need you to unpack this, because to the average listener, possible and feasible are the exact same word. What is the distinction?
This is genuinely one of my favorite distinctions in the English language, because it separates the theorists from the engineers. Possible belongs to the realm of theoretical physics. Does an action obey the laws of the universe?
Right. Can a human being run a marathon in under 2 hours? Yes, it has been proven it is possible.
But if you, as my manager, ask me to run a marathon in under 2 hours by tomorrow morning, is that feasible? Absolutely not.
Definitely not.
Feasibility asks a much harsher question. Do we, right now, with our current budget, our current staff, our current technology, and our current timeline, have the resources to execute this without destroying the company in the process?
I love that. Possible is theory. Feasible is reality. A startup founder goes to an investor and says, it is possible to build a colony on Mars. The investor replies, yes, but with your $10,000 seed round, it is not feasible.
Exactly. A feasible plan is one that survives the friction of reality. And if a plan is feasible, it actually gets built. Which leads us to hope that it becomes word 12. Viable.
Viable, meaning capable of working successfully, capable of surviving. Also a professional register.
Let's do the dialogue. You ask about an option we're considering.
Is this option really realistic for us long term?
Yes, I think it's viable.
So we've moved from possible to feasible to viable. How do you distinguish viable from feasible?
I always go straight to biology with this word. In biology, a viable seed is one that will actually germinate and grow if you put it in soil. A non-viable seed is just dead.
So in business, feasibility is about building the thing. Viability is about what happens after it's built.
That is a crucial distinction. Let's look at a classic Silicon Valley trap. A tech company decides to build an app that lets you order a private helicopter like a taxi. They have the engineers, they have the code. It is entirely feasible to build the app.
So they build it.
But once they launch it, they realize nobody can afford a $5,000 helicopter ride to the grocery store. The business model is entirely non-viable.
Wow. Yes. Feasible means we can make it. Viable means it will actually survive in the wild ecosystem of the market. And the reasons so many feasible ideas fail to become viable businesses is because they fail to respect word 13. Constraint.
Constraint. A limitation or restriction. Professional register.
Let's role play it.
Yeah.
I ask, why can't we add more features to the app?
And I say, honestly, budget is the main constraint.
A constraint is basically the sandbox we have to play inside. It's the absolute boundary of the field.
In project management, there is a famous concept known as the iron triangle, or the triple constraint. It states that every project is constrained by 3 elements: time, cost, and quality. You can pull any one of those levers, but it will inevitably break one of the others.
Right. If you want the software built incredibly fast, so time, and you want it to be flawless, quality, the constraint is that it will cost a massive amount of cost.
Yeah.
You cannot have it fast, cheap, and perfect. You have to design around the constraints.
Which requires making incredibly difficult choices. Acknowledging your constraints forces you into our 14th word, trade-off.
Trade-off. A situational compromise where you gain one specific advantage but must explicitly accept a corresponding disadvantage. Professional and neutral register.
Let's do our dialogue. You ask about speeding things up.
Can we make this production line faster?
Yes, but the trade-off may be lower quality control.
In economics, this is referred to as opportunity cost. Every choice you make costs you the opportunity to make a different choice.
How do you usually explain this to people?
For any gamers out there, I always equate a trade-off to building a character class in a role-playing video game. You are given a finite number of skill points when you start the game. If you want to play as a paladin, you put all your points into heavy armor and health. You are indestructible.
Sounds great.
But the trade-off is that your speed stat is 0. You move like a turtle. If you want to be a rogue, you max out your speed and stealth. But the trade-off is that if you get hit once, you die.
That is a perfect, actionable analogy. Real-world business strategy is just a series of stat allocations. You're always exchanging one value for another.
Right.
And here is why using the word trade-off is so powerful in a meeting. It shows profound strategic maturity. If you present a plan and pretend it is perfect, people will instantly distrust you.
They know there's a catch.
Yes. But if you stand up and say, we have decided to migrate to the new cloud servers,
Right.
the benefit is massive security. The necessary trade-off is that our system will be offline for 48 hours. You control the narrative.
You own the negative before someone else can use it against you. You're acknowledging the fine print. And that fine print is word 15, drawback.
Drawback, meaning a specific disadvantage, negative feature, or problem associated with the plan. Neutral to professional register.
Let's role play. I say, hey, this new software looks really useful.
And I reply, it does. But the main drawback is the monthly fee.
The drawback is the catch. It's the side effect listed at the end of a pharmaceutical commercial.
Exactly. And while a trade-off is the conscious exchange of values, a drawback is simply the lingering negative element you have to live with. A trade-off is active. A drawback is a passive reality you must accept to move forward.
So phase 3 is complete. We've navigated the constraints, accepted the trade-offs, managed the drawbacks, and successfully launched a viable solution into the world.
But as Isaac Newton taught us, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When you implement solutions in the real world, you disturb the ecosystem. You cause things to happen.
Which brings us to phase 4, cause and effect, the vocabulary of consequences. And we start with a word that sounds exactly like what it means. Word 16, exacerbate.
Exacerbate. To make a bad situation, a problem, or a negative feeling significantly worse. This is a formal, academic, and highly professional word.
Let's do the dialogue first. I complain the team is already so stressed out.
And I warn you, well, adding more pressure will only exacerbate the situation.
It is a very physical word to say. Exacerbate. It sounds sharp.
The etymology is literally medical. It comes from the Latin acerbus, meaning harsh or bitter. Historically, it was used to describe an illness that suddenly spiked in severity.
It feels like pouring gasoline on an existing fire. You already have a fire, that's the underlying problem. Let's say morale is extremely low because everyone is working 80-hour weeks. That is a problem.
A big problem.
If management then announces that they are taking away the free coffee in the break room to save money, they haven't just created a new problem. They have exacerbated the exhaustion and resentment that was already burning.
A classic unforced error. And ideally, in a professional crisis, your leadership goal is the exact opposite of exacerbating the situation. You are aiming for word 17, mitigate.
Mitigate, meaning to make something less severe, less harmful, or less painful. Formal and professional register.
Quick role play. You asked me about the shipping delay.
What can we actually do about this delay?
We can mitigate the impact by updating the client early and offering a discount.
This word has deep roots in the legal world, right?
Yes. The duty to mitigate damages is a legal obligation for a wronged party to take reasonable steps to keep their losses as minimal as possible.
Mitigate is essentially putting up a shield. The bad thing, the arrow, has already been fired. Like a massive hurricane is heading towards your supply chain hub. You cannot stop the hurricane from existing. The arrow is in the air.
True.
But you can mitigate the disaster by rerouting your shipping lines to a different port 3 days in advance.
You are softening the blow. It is active crisis management. You accept the damage will occur, but you control the severity. But sometimes damage doesn't come from a hurricane. Sometimes it happens slowly, almost invisibly right under your nose. That brings us to word 18, undermine.
Undermine. To lessen the effectiveness, power, or ability of someone or something, especially gradually or insidiously. Professional and academic.
Let's do the dialogue. I mention a problem with a colleague. He keeps questioning the team publicly.
And I say, wow, that could really undermine trust in the leadership.
Let's look at the imagery here. What does it literally mean to undermine?
I always think of medieval warfare, the sappers during a siege.
Exactly right. In medieval siege warfare, if a castle's walls were too thick to break with catapults, the attacking army would dig tunnels, mines deep underneath the castle foundations. They would pack those tunnels with explosives or just burn the wooden supports.
And the people inside the castle have no idea it's happening. They think their walls are perfectly strong, and then suddenly the ground gives way and the entire structure collapses.
This is exactly how psychological warfare works in a corporate office. If an employee stands up in a meeting and screams at the boss, that is a direct catapult attack. Everyone sees it. It's dealt with immediately.
Right, it's out in the open.
But if an employee smiles at the boss and then quietly goes to the break room and whispers to the junior staff, you know the boss doesn't actually know what they're doing, right? That is undermining.
It's removing the dirt beneath the foundation of their authority. It's a slow, insidious weakening. Wow. Note to self, never undermine the expert speaker.
It's a wise policy. So instead of sapping the foundation, let's look at how to build it up. Word 19, reinforce.
Reinforce. To strengthen or support an object, an idea, or a behavior. Neutral and professional.
Let's see the dialogue. You asked me about the latest report.
Hey, does the new report support your point?
Yes. The data strongly reinforces the argument.
If undermining is digging dirt out from under the castle, reinforcing is adding steel beams to the walls.
But it's not just physical or structural. In behavioral psychology, we talk about operant conditioning. Reinforcement.
Oh, like rewarding good behavior.
Exactly. If you want a team to be innovative and someone pitches a weird idea and the manager praises them for their creativity even if the idea isn't used, that manager is reinforcing a culture of psychological safety. You are rewarding the behavior to ensure it happens again.
You are validating the premise. And sometimes those actions, whether undermining a rival or reinforcing a habit, set off an unstoppable chain reaction. That is word 20, trigger.
Trigger. To cause an event or a situation to happen or exist, neutral and professional register.
Role play time. I ask, why did everyone complain about the memo?
And I say, the new policy triggered a lot of frustration.
It's the transfer of kinetic energy, the spark.
It is the first domino falling. The trigger itself might be incredibly small. A one-sentence memo sent at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday, but that tiny trigger unleashes a massive wave of panic and resignations over the weekend.
Right. The trigger isn't the explosion. It is the mechanical mechanism that releases the stored energy.
Precisely. So let's take a breath and look at where we are. We have navigated the causes and the effects. We have mitigated disasters, avoided exacerbating the crises, and reinforced positive behaviors.
But listen closely. None of this strategic brilliance matters even a little bit if you cannot articulate what you did to the board of directors.
No, it does not. The greatest strategy in the world is useless if it remains trapped in your own head.
Which opens the door to phase 5, communication and clarity. How do we master the meta skill of talking about talking? Let's start with the ultimate compliment. Word coming one, articulate.
Articulate, used here as an adjective, means having or showing the ability to speak fluently, coherently, and expressively. It is a highly professional register word.
Quick dialogue. I say, wow, he explained the problem really well.
And I agree, yes, he's very articulate in meetings.
To me, someone who is truly articulate is not just someone who talks a lot. We all know people who can talk for an hour and say absolutely nothing.
Unfortunately, yes.
An articulate person is like a painter. They can take a messy, abstract, emotional thought swirling around in their brain, and they can translate it into external language so perfectly that the listener instantly sees the exact same high-definition picture.
It requires an immense vocabulary to be truly articulate because, as we discussed with the scalpel analogy, you need the exact right word to match the exact contour of the thought.
That makes sense.
Look at the anatomical root of the word. Joints in the human body, like your elbow or your knee, are called articulations. If something is articulated, it means it is jointed. It has parts that move smoothly together.
Oh.
An articulate speaker connects their ideas with smooth, flexible joints.
And ironically, mastering that smooth connection often means learning how to speak less. Which brings us to word 22, Concise.
Concise, giving a lot of information clearly and in a few words. Brief but comprehensive. Professional register.
Let's do the dialogue. I ask, should I explain every detail in the email?
No, just keep it concise.
It comes from the Latin cadir, to cut.
Exactly. It is the art of the sculptor. You start with a massive block of raw marble. That's all your data, all your research, all your panic.
Right, the whole mess.
Being concise means chipping away every single piece of stone that doesn't look like the final statue. Trimming the fat. Getting straight to the absolute meat of the issue without wasting a single second of the listener's time.
But wait, this brings me to word 23, and I have to ask a question. Word 23 is elaborate.
Elaborate, used as a verb here, means to add more detail concerning what has already been said. Neutral to professional register.
Let's do the role play. You say, the plan has some risks.
And you ask, could you elaborate on that point?
So what does this all mean? If I am striving to be a C2 level professional communicator, and I want to be concise and cut away all unnecessary words, isn't that the exact mathematical opposite of asking someone to elaborate and pile on more details?
It seems like a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah. How can good communication demand both brevity and expansion?
If we pull back and look at the sociolinguistics of a boardroom, you are observing the natural rhythm, the heartbeat of excellent communication. It is a dance.
A dance between the sculptor and the painter.
Precisely. You do not want a speaker to elaborate on every single data point right from the start. If you walk into a meeting and immediately start giving a 40-minute, deeply elaborated history of a project, you cause information overload. Eyes glaze over. You lose the room.
You're just dumping the whole block of marble on the table.
A highly skilled, articulate communicator starts concise. They give you the headline, the core truth, the essential statue. Our Q3 profits are down 12% due to supply chain bottlenecks in Southeast Asia. Period.
Just that one sentence.
And then they stop talking. They pause. They wait for the listener to digest the concise truth, find the specific area that interests them, and then the listener asks them to elaborate.
Oh. Could you elaborate on the bottlenecks in Southeast Asia? So you start concise to respect their time and their cognitive load, and you elaborate on demand to satisfy their specific curiosity.
Exactly. It transforms a lecture into a dynamic dialogue. And sometimes during that elaboration, things get messy or misunderstood, which requires our safety net word, 24, clarify.
Clarify. To make a statement or situation less confused and more comprehensible. Neutral and professional.
Let's role play. I say, I'm not sure I understand the new policy.
And I reply, let me clarify what I mean.
It is the optical metaphor, bringing the lens into focus.
Let me clarify what I mean. Clarifying is like wiping the thick fog off a bathroom mirror. The reflection was always there. The truth was present, but it was obscured by the steam of poor communication. You wipe it away, and suddenly the lines are razor sharp.
And you must be proactive with clarification. If you sense the room is lost, you don't wait for them to ask. You step in and say, to clarify, this does not mean we are firing anyone. It means we are reassigning roles. You preemptively destroy the misunderstanding.
That's smart.
And the ultimate goal of being articulate, starting concisely, elaborating on demand, and clarifying your points is all in service of one final objective. Word 25, convey.
Convey. To communicate an idea, an impression, or a feeling to someone so that it is understood perfectly, professional and academic.
Let's do the dialogue. You ask, what message are we trying to send with this press release?
We want to convey trust and stability.
Look at the route here. Conveyor, to a company on the way.
I always picture convey as a logistics network. It is the delivery truck. It's the vehicle that takes the fragile, valuable idea from the warehouse of my brain, drives across the dangerous highway of a noisy conference room, and successfully unloads it, fully intact, into the warehouse of your brain.
I love that visual.
You spoke for an hour, but you didn't convey the core message. The truck crashed and burned on the highway.
A visceral but entirely accurate metaphor. You can be articulate and still fail to convey the necessary urgency. Conveyance is the ultimate metric of successful communication, which brings us, appropriately, to our final phase.
Phase 6. Evaluation and judgment, the postmortem. We've had the nuanced thoughts, argued the contentious opinions, implemented the viable solutions, dealt with the exacerbated consequences, and conveyed the results. Now the dust has settled. We must look back and measure what just happened. Let's start with measuring the sheer weight of the impact. Word 26. Substantial.
Substantial, meaning of considerable importance, size, or worth. Formal and professional register.
Let's do the dialogue. I ask, did the software changes actually help?
Yes, there was substantial improvement in the load times.
The new software generated substantial revenue. The etymology here is quite literal, isn't it?
It is. Substantia, having physical substance, having weight.
This isn't just a tiny statistical bump. If a change is substantial, it moved the needle. You can feel the gravitational pull of it in the quarterly reports. It physically matters to the survival of the business.
Conversely, if the needle didn't move at all, if the impact was a ghost, we use word 27, negligible.
Negligible. So small or unimportant as to be not worth considering. Insignificant, formal and professional.
Let's role play. You ask, is option B much cheaper than option A?
Not really. The difference is negligible.
The Latin root is negligere, which means to neglect. It literally translates to able to be neglected.
The difference in price between vendor A and vendor B is negligible. It's a rounding error. It's the penny you leave in the plastic tray at the convenience store. Yes, technically it exists, but it fundamentally does not alter your reality.
This is a word of profound executive function. By identifying an impact or a risk as negligible in a meeting, you are issuing a command to your team. Do not waste your finite mental energy worrying about this metric. It frees up cognitive resources to focus on what is substantial.
But sometimes decisions are made without looking at the substantial or negligible metrics at all. Sometimes people just guess, which leads to the most polite insult in the corporate dictionary, word 28, arbitrary.
Arbitrary, based on random choice or personal whim, rather than any structural reason or system, formal register.
Quick dialogue. I ask, why is the deadline tomorrow?
Honestly, I don't know. It feels arbitrary.
It comes from the arbiter, right?
Yes, the arbiter. The judge or absolute ruler who makes a decision simply because they have the power to do so, not because logic dictates it.
This deadline feels completely arbitrary. Arbitrary is like throwing a dart at a calendar while blindfolded. There's no rationale. Hey, a callback to word 3. There's no underlying blueprint. Management just picked a Tuesday because they felt like it.
As you said, it is a devastatingly polite critique. If you stand up to a VP and call their new policy arbitrary, you are not calling them stupid. You are surgically pointing out that their mandate lacks an objective foundation.
It is the velvet glove over the iron fist.
Yeah.
But some things aren't arbitrary at all. Some things are bound by the unforgiving laws of the universe, bringing us to word 29, inevitable.
Inevitable, certain to happen, unavoidable, neutral to formal.
Let's do the dialogue. I ask, can we just avoid every single problem on this rollout?
Probably not. Some problems are inevitable.
Inevitabilis, not able to be avoided. I always think of gravity. If I knock my coffee cup off the edge of this desk, it is inevitable that it will hit the floor and shatter. I cannot negotiate with gravity. I cannot argue with it. I just have to grab a mop and plan for it.
Right. You can't stop it.
Like saying, with a project of this massive scale, some minor coding bugs are simply inevitable.
Accepting inevitability is the hallmark of mature leadership. Inexperienced managers try to magically stop the inevitable. They try to enforce zero-defect policies that drive employees absolutely insane.
Oh, I've worked for those managers.
We all have. Mature leaders shift their focus from how do we stop gravity to how do we mitigate the damage when the cup inevitably falls.
Which leaves us with our final word in the toolkit, word 30. When you look at an outcome or a proposed strategy and you just aren't sure about the ethics, the logic, or the viability, questionable.
Questionable. Doubtful as regards truth, validity, or morality. Neutral to professional.
Let's role play. I ask, do you agree with their new marketing strategy?
Honestly, I think it's highly questionable.
The ethics of scraping that user data seem highly questionable. Let's be real with the listener. Questionable is the ultimate corporate survival word. It is the highly polite, diplomatic way of saying that it's a spectacularly terrible idea, it is probably illegal, and it is going to blow up in your face, and I want it on the record that I don't agree with it.
It absolutely is. You are raising a massive neon red flag without ever raising your voice or sounding aggressive. It is the peak of the scalpel methodology.
Okay. Deep breath. That is 30 incredibly powerful, semantically heavy words. But as our sources explicitly state, passively listening to a deep dive isn't enough to achieve C2 fluency.
No, it takes practice.
The key is pragmatic application. It's time for the practice section, the upgrade challenge.
This is where theory collides with reality.
Listener, I want you to imagine a scenario. I am the project lead on a major software launch. The launch has been delayed by 3 months because the engineering team keeps changing the features.
Sounds frustrating.
I am furious. I am stressed. And I've drafted an email to the director of engineering The draft I've written is aggressive, it uses blunt instrument vocabulary, and if I hit send, it will probably trigger an HR investigation.
A classic career-limiting move.
Exactly. So, expert, I'm going to read you my terrible blunt instrument sentences one by one. Your job is to act as my corporate translator.
Okay, I'm ready.
Use the scalpel. Upgrade my emotional sentences using our new vocabulary, and let's briefly look at how the tone fundamentally shifts the power dynamic of the email. Ready?
I have my scalpel ready. Let's operate on this email.
Sentence 1.
Okay.
I wrote, this constant changing of features is making the delay problem so much worse.
Okay, upgrade. This constant shifting of project constraints is severely exacerbating the delays.
Oh, wow. The shift there is from a whining victim to a formal diagnostician. Making it worse sounds like I'm complaining to a friend. Exacerbating sounds like I'm analyzing a system failure.
Precisely. You remove the emotion and inject clinical analysis. Next sentence.
Sentence 2. The reason you guys decided to do this makes absolutely no sense.
Upgrade. The rationale behind this pivot is entirely unclear, and the logic appears flawed.
I love that. I removed the attack on you guys and focused entirely on the rationale. I'm demanding the blueprints, and I'm pointing out a structural crack by calling it flawed, rather than just calling this stupid.
It forces the engineering director to respond with data, rather than responding with defensive anger. Continue.
Sentence 3. We need to make the danger of this failure smaller right now.
Upgrade. We must immediately implement a strategy to mitigate these risks.
Making things smaller sounds like I'm talking to a child about a toy. Mitigating risks sounds like I am actively deploying executive risk management protocols.
It positions you as a leader, actively protecting the company's assets.
Sentence 4. Honestly, I don't think your new timeline can even work.
Upgrade. Based on current resource allocations, I do not believe the revised timeline is feasible, nor is the final product viable in this market.
That is devastatingly professional.
Yeah.
Can't work is a gut feeling. But breaking it down into feasible, meaning we can't build it in time, and viable, meaning it won't survive the market anyway, proves that I have run the actual economic calculations.
You are hitting them with the iron triangle. What's next?
Sentence 5. You are ruining my team's confidence.
Upgrade. These sudden shifts are actively undermining the morale of the development team.
Ruining is a temper tantrum. Undermining evokes that imagery of the sappers digging under the castle. It paints a picture of a slow, systemic destruction of trust.
It implies that the damage is structural, not just hurt feelings.
Sentence 6. There are good things and bad things about launching early.
Upgrade. There is a clear trade-off to an accelerated launch, and we must acknowledge the inherent drawbacks.
Good and bad are moral, almost childish judgments. A trade-off is an economic reality. It shows I am weighing the opportunity costs on a scale.
It demonstrates that you understand business is about managing compromises, not seeking perfection.
Sentence 7. If we do this, the difference in our profit will be really tiny anyway.
Upgrade. The projected margin increase from this feature is entirely negligible.
Really tiny still implies we should look at it under a microscope. Calling it negligible commands the director to completely ignore it and move on. It dismisses the value entirely.
It tells them they're wasting their time.
Sentence 8. This new Friday deadline you picked is completely random.
Upgrade. The imposition of this Friday deadline appears highly arbitrary.
The polite insult. I am calling out the absolute lack of logic without calling the director a dictator.
You are demanding that they justify the date with actual business needs.
Sentence 9. I want to make this super clear so you get it.
Upgrade. Allow me to clarify my position so we can reach a consensus.
So you get, it is incredibly condescending. Clarify resets the lens, and bringing in consensus reminds the director that we are actually supposed to be on the same team, aiming for alignment.
You are shifting from combat to collaboration.
And the final sentence of my terrible email. This is not a simple issue, so write me back with more stuff.
Upgrade. This is a highly nuanced issue. Could you please elaborate on your proposed solution?
Boom. That is the sound of an HR violation transforming into an executive-level memo.
Oh.
I honored the complexity by calling it nuanced, and I invited a structured dialogue by asking them to elaborate.
You put the scalpel to work, and you saved your career in the process.
As we wrap up this deep dive, listener, I want you to let this formidable arsenal of language wash over you one more time. Internalize the rhythm of these words.
Listen closely.
Nuanced. Assumption. Rationale. Implication. Perspective. Compelling. Flawed. Coherent. Contentious. Consensus. Feasible. Viable. Constraint. Trade-off. Drawback. Exacerbate. Mitigate. Undermine. Reinforce. Trigger. Articulate. Concise. Elaborate. Clarify. Convey. Substantial. Negligible. Arbitrary. Inevitable, questionable.
That is 30 instruments of immense precision, but here's the final call to action straight from the linguistic research we base this on. Do not go into the office tomorrow and try to use all 30 words in one meeting. If you do that, you will sound utterly ridiculous.
You'll sound like you swallowed a dictionary.
Exactly. Choose just 10 of these words today. Write them on a sticky note, put it on the edge of your monitor, practice using them in real written sentences, in your low-stakes emails, in your daily stand-up meetings. Let them become muscle memory. Remember the core philosophy. The goal of advanced vocabulary is to make your communication clearer, sharper, and less emotionally volatile. You are seeking precision, not complexity.
Take those 10 words, learn their weight, and make them your own.
But before we let you go, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought. We have spent this entire deep dive mastering precise words. We've sharpened our scalpels to ensure our ideas are conveyed perfectly, without ambiguity, across the boardroom table. But ask yourself this: what happens when two people sit across from each other and they use the exact same precise vocabulary? What happens when they are perfectly coherent, undeniably articulate, and yet they still fundamentally misunderstand each other's humanity? Does language, no matter how advanced, have an ultimate limit? And does true connection, true consensus, require something that exists in the silent space between us, beyond just finding the perfect word?
Something to think about the next time you reach for that scalpel. Until next time.